Hi, Dan.
Hello,
Hi. Okay, my name is Becca. Nice to meet you.
nice
I
to meet you
just
too.
want to, sorry, I just want to start by explaining how these sessions and what they kind of look like as we go through, especially this first session. I know it's sometimes a bit daunting to tell a stranger anything about yourself when you don't know them. So, what I'll do first is just explain how CBT works. Do you know much about CBT at all?
Not really. No, it's just suggested to me. So yeah, I'd
Okay.
like to hear a bit more, please.
No probs. So CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, it works in general in terms of identifying your problems. That's the first step. So what we would look at is identifying your problems in terms of what we call a four-factor model. So that four-factor would be your thoughts, your feelings, any emotions that you're having, any physical reactions that happen as a result of those two prior things, and then your behaviors in general. And we kind of have a look at how they fit together and how what's happening between that formulation of those four factors, how that's causing maybe some problems or issues in your life at the moment. Okay. Then once we identify those problems, and that comes completely from you, we have a look in the past. And CBT is a little bit different to other psychotherapies because it doesn't tend to dwell in the past as much as others. We have a look at the past to start off with in the first session, and that's what we'll have a look at today. But we do that essentially to see if we can build up this jigsaw puzzle and see if any problems that you have now are relating to anything that happened in the past, as maybe, not so much a reason, but an explanation as to why our thoughts have progressed this way. And then what we do from there, we kind of discuss strategies that will help you to change these thoughts, because the thoughts are the first step. And if we can change those thoughts, that filters down to your physical reactions, your behaviors, your emotions, and it stops that cycle in its tracks. Otherwise, it's just going to continue on.
Okay.
Okay. So, where I'd like to start basically is for you to tell me what you think at the moment are your biggest problems, your biggest issues. And when you're telling me, I'm just going to make some notes. Okay. So if I'm looking down, that's what I'm doing, because I want to share those with you afterwards so you can adapt them or change them if you need to. Sometimes you might think of things afterwards when we look back. Okay. So in your own time, if you want to just share with me any problems that you're having right now, Dan.
I, I just feel like there's quite a lot going on at the moment, if I'm honest. I just feel quite down at the moment. Just lack motivation to do anything. I can't seem to make relationships work. I don't work as well. So in fact, I'm actually now living with my parents. So I just feel like I've never really achieved anything, and I just everything's going wrong for me at the moment.
Is there anything else that you can think of?
I don't know. Like I said, I've lacked motivation. I feel like I'm spending my life just kind of in my room at the moment. Just tend to leave just to get meals. I hardly go out anymore. Occasional walk now and again, but I don't know. I just feel like there's got to be more than this.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you say you live with your parents at the moment.
Yeah.
Are you in a relationship? You said you did say that it's affecting relationships. Are you in a relationship at the moment?
No. No.
Okay. But do you feel that it's affected past relationships? Have you noticed this in past relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. I struggle to talk to new people. I struggle to know where to kind of um, find anyone to start a relationship with. And I just think that those people who maybe I do get close to kind of see that not really worth staying with anyway.
Yeah.
So they don't last long.
Okay, thank you. So what I want you to think about now, we've identified these problems, and what I want us to now look at. So if you think about that formulation, that's kind of your thought process stage. And what I want you to try and describe to me now is how those problems affect you. So in terms of how they maybe prevent you from doing something or stop you from doing something or make you feel a certain way, and any coping strategies that you have for those things. So if we look at, you said you feel down all the time. Can you describe to me what that looks like in terms of any physical sensations or any emotions?
Well, I stay in bed quite a lot. I just think, what's the point in getting up? There's nothing to get up for. And then I don't really do anything. I feel too low to even bother doing anything. It's almost like, I think, what's the point? I'm not going to be any good at anything anyway. Yeah, I'm just going to end up messing it up. I'm going to end up failing. So I just don't really bother trying.
Okay. Do you have any hobbies?
Used to. I used to. Used to play football. Used to like drawing, art and stuff like that. I used to go out more, just for walks and stuff, but that's limited now. The only thing I do now really is probably like gaming and stuff. I do that quite a lot still, but again, that's just sat in my room if I'm not in bed.
How long, if you were to put a time frame on it, how long do you feel like these problems have been around?
I feel like they've kind of been there all the time, but I think it got worse at university when I went to university and then I dropped out. I just found it quite difficult. I had some issues with certain people there. I found it quite tough.
Mm-hmm.
It just weren't working out for me. I wasn't doing too well on my course either, so I just felt it was best to leave.
Okay. And if you think of a time, say before that, so a time when these problems weren't around, would you be able to flip these problems in terms of, you were feeling the opposite of down, you were motivated to do these things? Is it, if you kind of looked, does it appear as a mirror image and one is the polar opposite? Or would you say that you've always been susceptible to have kind of low moods? Or is it something that you feel like is just completely spiraled out of your control?
I wouldn't say it was polar opposite. I'd say that I've always been susceptible to low mood, but it's definitely not been as bad. And I've definitely had moments of kind of fun and happiness in my life. And just thinking back to when I used to play football and things like that, I used to love doing that. I had good moments at school, friends and stuff. Did do too well at school. I kind of did the minimum really, but there were times at school where I had fun, and actually, I had quite a good upbringing really. My mum and dad were good. They still are. But it's just almost, it's rather than just flipping, I just feel it's almost grown over the years.
Okay. Well, you've started to kind of tell me bits and pieces about your life, essentially, basically, your parents you mentioned there. So what I'd like for us to do now is have a look at your past. So this is what we kind of call the psychosocial history of you, basically. Now, what I'd like you to think about is you go far back as you want to, or you feel like you need to, or you feel comfortable with. And at this stage, in the first session, sometimes it's difficult to share things that are maybe a little bit raw to us, or a little bit out of our comfort zone. So this is an opportunity for you to tell me as much as you want or as little as you want. Obviously, sharing anything that you think is related in any way or any past trauma is going to be really helpful if the case is that anything that you can pinpoint that's happened. But you tell me as much as you want to, basically, about you, anything you even think is insignificant that may open any doors for us. Okay.
It's difficult to know where to start. I guess it at school, even though there were good times and I did have fun at times, I always feel like people were telling me that I was letting them down, not achieving well enough, not fulfilling my potential. It was, yeah, a lot of moaning by teachers and parents about how I should be and what I should be doing. And then that kind of continued a bit when I did A levels. I failed my first year of A level, had to retake, and even when I did retake, I only scraped through, just managed to get into uni, and then I failed that as well. I was told, my parents said to me before I went to uni that actually they felt I was just avoiding work, and I went anyway and ended up not finishing. And it was almost like they were almost like told you so kind of thing. So yeah, I don't feel like I've ever achieved anything. Even the things I enjoyed, like football, I got worse as I got older rather than improving.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like everyone around me is more successful than I am.
Okay.
And I've achieved more. And I've got these like expectations that people have put on me, and I never seem to meet them. So I just don't see the point anymore.
Yeah. Would you say, in terms of circles of friends, would you describe yourself as someone that has a lot of friends or a lot of acquaintances, or kind of a close network of friends?
I've got like a group of friends from school.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't make any friends at uni, but yeah, I feel like I feel like the friends I made at school kind of drifting a little bit. Some of them have moved away. They've all kind of got jobs and families and lives to be getting on with, and I don't. So I almost feel like I'm not really part of that group anymore. Like they still like involve me. They still send me messages. I still play with them on PS4 and that. They're still around, but I definitely feel like the odd one out.
Okay. Is there anything else that you think would be significant in your past, or how's your relationship with, other than what you've shared with me about university and those expectations that you felt were put upon you by your parents? How would you describe your relationship with your parents now?
pretty strained, I think. Like they've always been great parents, and they've always looked after me well. But I think I'm now just I think they're just fed up with the fact that I'm still living at their house, not got a job. I think they probably just do want better for me, but they're almost kind of annoyed or angry that I've not made that happen.
Yeah.
I feel like I've let them down, so I just try and stay out of their way as much as possible, really.
Okay. Anything else that you feel you want to share at this point, past wise?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Right, we'll come back to that in a moment, and we'll come back to your problem list, and we'll have a look at maybe things that might be linked or not, or just kind of have a discussion about where I think things may be affecting you for various reasons. But obviously it's so easy for us to be negative about ourselves. I think it probably comes more easy for us to say the things we don't like about ourselves or our weaknesses. But what I want us to do now is I want for you to highlight what you consider any strengths that you have as a person, any characteristics, any physical strengths, anything that may give us a useful strategy that you're using that works for a certain part of your life that maybe we could adapt to use for these problems that are presenting themselves. So is there anything that you can think of that you basically is a strength in your life, something you may be good at, or maybe something that you think other people would say about you that was a strength?
It's a difficult question.
It's always harder to kind of praise ourselves than it is to criticize ourselves. But it can be the tiniest little thing that actually would go a long way to build on a strategy.
So when I'm like gaming with my friends, I tend to be the one that kind of like organizes things and kind of lets everyone else know what their roles are, and I kind of look at different strategies, and I do the research, and I learn by watching others about maybe how to complete a certain level or whatever, and I relay that back. So I'm quite organized in that sense, but I have the time to do it. Everyone else works, so it just makes sense that it's me.
Okay. I'm sure they're appreciated. Do they show appreciation, your wisdom?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes they thank me. You know, if we do well, they tend to thank me if we do well. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Any other strengths that you can think of?
I am quite good at art, I suppose. It was always something I did more as a kid, and that's what I went to university to do.
Yeah. You don't do any kind of artwork now?
Not really, no. Occasional doodle, but
okay. Right. So what I want us to look at now is we'll have a look at your problem list that you've generated. And we'll have a look at what that might look like against some things that you mentioned that I picked up on. Okay. And now what generally happens is, well, generally, sometimes it doesn't. I may point out things that lead us through some kind of an explanation, okay, that we can work with. It's not an explanation in terms of a fix. That's not how it works. For example, the strength you just shared with me, straight away, the organization. The thought process that was going through my mind at that point was, you know, you've identified this strength to organize for other people. However, you're finding it difficult to organize for yourself right now. And whilst, that is a strength there for others, we need to bridge that gap so that it becomes a strength for yourself to organize motivations, things that you can do that make you feel more motivated, things that you can do that lift your mood, for example. So that jumped out at me straight away. So if we kind of look back at your problems, you said that you feel down most of the time. Your lack of motivation, relationships, not now, but it has in the past affected them in terms of the other person struggling to kind of take all of these issues on board. And what goes with that generally, when we have this feeling of feeling down and no motivation, we kind of stay in our comfort zone. So it comes quite natural when we stay in bed or we stay in our bedroom. And what starts to happen is pushing ourselves to do anything beyond those realms become very, very difficult. Okay. Now, what I also noticed when you were describing kind of your past and you started at school and you felt like you were letting people down, whether that be your parents or your teachers. And when you were describing this to me, what kind of went through my mind, what became apparent was that it's almost like you see yourself doing well for other people rather than yourself, which is great. We always want to do well for our parents. We always want to succeed for our teachers. But what I would say in terms of those problems you've identified, what goes with that at the moment, I would describe is low self-esteem as well. And when you were describing to me that, you went to uni and your parents told me that you were avoiding work, which sometimes is a generation comment to make. But you went through the processes and you kind of dropped out anyway. And I just questioned there whether you were doing that for yourself or you were doing that for other people. And it seems to me with the gaming as well, whilst you enjoy it, it seems that it comes from a place of doing it for other people. And when we experience failure from things that we do for other people, then it has a harsher effect on our self-esteem, because we not only feel like we're letting ourselves down, but we feel like we're letting all these people around us down, which then kind of makes us withdraw even more. Okay. Is any of that you want to kind of dispute, or anything you want to add to any of those points?
No, that all makes sense. What I did think about though when you were talking was probably one of the only things in my life that I did do for me was my art. That wasn't for anyone else. When I sat down and painted a picture or drew something, that was for me. And that's probably why I went to uni to do it. I always thought it was because my parents didn't want me to. Mm-hmm. So I just went anyway, just to prove them wrong. Mm-hmm. But I also think that it was something for me.
And it's, we always have to find time to do the things that we want to do, because we spend a lot of our lives being forced to do the things we don't really want to do. So it's really important to find that balance, to do something that comes from us, that's for us. And it just seemed to me, I heard a lot there from things that you were describing come from a place of you trying to please other people. And like I said, if that doesn't work out or fails in some way, then it's like a double whammy. You feel bad for yourself, but you feel bad for the others as well, because you are mainly doing it for other people. And it's about building up this, you want to be better, but it's better to want to be better for yourself. Does that make sense? And in that process of bettering yourself for yourself, you will find success, and people will recognize success from the outside. But it's almost, if we do things for other people, it's almost sometimes like we're setting ourselves up for failure because we don't actually really want it. We're only doing it for somebody else. Okay.
I think I was always taught that doing things for other people was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And, if you look at in terms of opening doors for people, sharing, if I'm going back to when we were really little, and that's how we learn to treat others how we want to be treated ourselves. Absolutely. I was brought up exactly the same. And then in this process of when we turn into adolescence and, we're fighting to find our identity, that's then when we start to make plans in our head that, yes, we are still doing things for our parents and our family and other people because we want to please. Kind of comes from a collectivist society, I suppose, if you want to look at it that way. But we also have to find the path of what do we want, because from adolescence through to adulthood, which takes you your whole rest of your lifespan, you are then building up your future and your legacy. Okay. We're still doing a lot of things for other people, and that's always nice, especially for family and for friends, but it shouldn't be in the compromise of ourselves. You shouldn't compromise you for others, because that will always end in failure. If it's, a split of actually I'm doing everything for other people, and I used to like doing art, but I don't do that anymore. I like my gaming, but a lot of the time I do take the lead because it naturally falls with me, which is fine. And what you find is things like that do fall. Natural leaders do become apparent, they come to the surface. And you have the time to do that. But do you do it because you have the time to do it? Is that the only reason you do it, because you have the time to do it? Or do you do it because actually you like this feeling of taking the lead and you're good at it because you must be? And that comes with recognition. Okay, recognize there that yes, you do it because you have time and the others don't, but you do it because you're good at it. You do it because you've excelled in it, and that's your role. You found that role in leadership, and that's a huge, huge strength.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I think that when we look for, if we look at the whole spectrum of low mood, it kind of has such a knock-on effect on so many other things. One of the main things being our motivation, and we become less and less motivated to do anything. And when you get to that stage, what we need to now, and I would say that's what we work on to start off with, your motivation, building that back up again so that you're filling these gaps of time with things for you. Because what we find is when we fill that time with things for ourselves, our mood automatically elevates. But it's very difficult to force ourselves to do things in the first place because our mood is so low. So this is this kind of ongoing cycle with kind of low mood. So what I would like you to do, and between sessions occasionally, I'll ask you to what I would call missions, or, for younger clients, it would be homework, whatever you want to call it. And sometimes it would be a thinking exercise. Sometimes I might ask you to kind of jot something down. And what I would like you to do for next session is to create a diary that spans across the week. And I'm not going to ask you to put any thorough detail. All I'm asking you to do is to split it into morning, afternoon, and evening, and simply put what you're doing and a mark out of 10 in terms of your mood. Okay, so if I show you an example of one, find it down here. Now I can send you this template.
Okay.
I can't share that with you now because it says it's disabled. Host. I can't share it for some reason because it's saying it's disabled. Have you disabled sharing on yours?
Yeah, I've just sorted it out for you.
Fabulous, thank you. Technology. Okay, so as an example, I can send you this, is fine, but you can basically see you've got the days, you've splitting it up. And if I was going to show you a model of one that I filled in myself, you can see how kind of unthorough, for want of a better word, that it is. I'm not asking you to write a diary. It's just so we can see where your low mood is coming from. Okay. Because when we can see where that's coming from, we can then start to swap some things around, because the first stage is identifying when we're at our lowest and when we're at our highest. And then the biggest step is to turn those demotivated moments into actually forcing yourself to do something such as art. You know, you just mentioned there, actually, I did kind of enjoy that. So those feelings of enjoyment may just as equally come back, but we have to try and work towards you filling these time gaps with things that make you feel good for you. Okay. So I would like for us to work on your motivation first and really focus on bringing up your self-esteem and your self-worth, which will eventually bring up your low mood. Okay, so if you could fill that in for me over between the next sessions, that would be great. And just kind of have a look at it as well and get an eye for any patterns that you can see that are kind of coming up there. Okay. Is there anything else at this point in the session that you wanted to mention or talk about in terms of any problems or issues or anything that's come in your head since we started?
Well, yeah, just when you showed me that timetable thing you wanted me to fill out, it made me, you said mornings. I rarely see a morning.
Okay.
So my sleeping pattern's a little odd. So I tend to sleep in the mornings and then get up in the afternoons, and then kind of, so because like evenings tend to just be like gaming and stuff, and that can go on all right sometimes. Sometimes a couple of my friends might stay on, but usually it's just me, to be fair. And I tend to go to bed like anywhere between kind of midnight and 4 a.m. really, anywhere between then.
Okay.
Yeah, so sleeping's not great.
Yeah, that's not great. Midnight to 4 a.m. Okay. How long have you been sustaining that sleep pattern, would you say, roughly?
Maybe like a year, something like that, maybe more.
And in terms of, because I'm thinking matching it with food intake, how would you describe your eating habits? Would you say that you are fairly healthy, you eat regular meals? Because that, I mean, missing that whole morning, you're essentially missing your breakfast, aren't you? So when you get up in midday or late morning, whatever it is, would you just eat lunch? You've kind of missed breakfast, so you're just going to eat the lunch. And then if you were to stay up past midnight, would you continue to eat and past midnight, kind of early hours in the morning? How does your eating patterns reflect those sleeping patterns?
So I don't tend, I'd never have breakfast. I don't tend to have lunch either. My mum always cooks me dinner. I always have a home cooked meal in the evening, and then I just like kind of snack, like unhealthy stuff, crisps, chocolate, popcorn, that kind of stuff, while I'm gaming pretty much all night. Yeah, so it's not the healthiest.
Okay, so what I'd like you to do for me as well on kind of your diary is just to make a note of what you've eaten. Okay. So if you're getting up midday, you start with your first activity or whatever you're doing in the day. So if you get up at 11 a.m. or 12 p.m., you can literally put just woke up, first hour out of bed, so you've acclimatized a little bit. And I would still want you to share with me your mood having just got up or an hour into getting up. Okay, because that's really important, because we can gauge how you feel after that sleeping pattern. And with your food, it kind of, that will really help us to see what it is that you're eating, that, you know, you said yourself, you're not eating the greatest of things. You know, we all know that crisps and chocolates and things like that are great source of energy if you're running around a field non-stop in moderation. But gaming's very sedimentary, isn't it? So if we're looking at sleep patterns, and the ideal being that, you know, we're not staying up early hours in the morning, despite the fact that we've had so much sleep in the morning, so we're not losing hours, we're making up for it when we're laying in the morning. If you're eating throughout that time frame past midnight, it'd be like Gremlins, if you kind of want to compare it to that. That's not preparing your body or your mind for relaxation. So it seems to me all these things you're doing at the moment are complementing sleeping in late, staying up late, which as human beings, that's not the healthiest way to live our lives. It's not in terms of motivation and what you're doing with those hours when you're not sleeping, it's all adding to this cycle of low mood and low motivation, because what we're doing when we're awake is not stimulating our endorphins. And what we're doing when we're asleep, obviously, we're recovering, but it's not quite the balance we want in terms of hours awake, hours asleep. If you look at an average cycle of going to sleep at nighttime, being up in the morning, you're missing that whole section of day. Okay, so if you could add in details about what you're eating, that will be great. And don't worry if you're getting up halfway through the day, just kind of give me an idea of what you're doing and put a score with it, because we're analysing what you're doing that's making you feel good with a high score out of 10, and what you're doing that's making you feel low, which would be representative of a low score. And then trying to take out those low score tasks and replace them with things that elevate our mood.
Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Okay. And what we will look at next session, we will have a look at your diary, and we'll have a look at patterns. And I want you to kind of, you know, have a look, see if you can identify a pattern you want to share with me. And then I want to talk to you about goals in terms of, you know, what would life look like for you if these problems didn't exist? And that step in between, because the step in between is the hardest bit. You have these presenting problems you've described to me. This is your goal, being that those aren't there anymore. But actually what we've got hovering in the middle is 1,000,001 way setbacks, 1,000,001 ways for you not to get to the end goal. And what we need to replace those with are strategies to push you along. Because at the moment you're hitting this brick wall. Okay, so we'll have a look at those goals next week. But if there's anything else you want to tell me at this point, now's the time, or anything you want to ask me about anything that we've mentioned or talked about today.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, that's everything.
Okay. Well, I will send you the template just in case you want to use that, but it can be in any format. Okay. It's not home. You're not handing it in. Okay. So it can be on Post-its if you want to.
Okay. Yeah.
And I shall see you same time next week.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. Bye.
Bye-bye.